35 years ago, around this time, the wheels of Kenya's push for multi-party democracy began to turn, set in motion by the arrest of prominent opposition figures. Charles Rubia, Kenneth Matiba and Raila Odinga were detained just days before the historic SABA SABA rally, a demonstration that began in violence but paved the way for the return of multi-party democracy in post-independent Kenya. Brenda Wanga begins our special coverage on the spirit of SABA SABA, a journey through the struggle, the sacrifice and the lasting legacy of this defining moment in our history.
On the 7th of July 1990, Kenya was in the grip of one of the most intense protests witnessed since independence.
We were able to bring together in this town, I think, more than 500,000 people.
People are dying to come there. That it was some kind of rebirth. People are looking for a rebirth. Mtoto amefika kuzaliwa, lazima azaliwe.
The uprising then had been a long time coming. Kenya was suffocating under the near dictatorship leadership of the then President Daniel Arap Moi. He had not only chained Kenya into a legal one-party state, but he had clamped down on dissenting voices, especially in the wake of the attempted coup. Those opposed to the KANU government and ideologies began organizing underground through movements like the December 12th movement and later Mwakenya.
We used to get concerned with liberation.
Professor Kiongo Maina, detained for these activities and former MP and one of the organizers of the SABA SABA, say Kenya went through a rough 4-year period before the idea of SABA SABA was birthed.
The government now was cracked down. There was total fear in the whole country. People could not even talk. Families were not talking. You could not, a wife could not talk to her husband could not, because everybody was suspecting everybody else. So the next four years, 96, 86, 87, 88, the government tended to have an upper hand. And by 1988, so many of Mwakenya members were rotting in Kenyan prisons.
After 1988 December, they decided to stop me from activities in KANU, and then we declared multi-party now campaign. That is when we started. By that time, Brenda, Kenneth Matiba had been humiliated and embarrassed in Kiharu. Simeon Nyachai had been kicked out of the Chief Secretary's office, and quite formidable Kenyans, you know, were kicked out of KANU through the Mulolongo of 1988. And George Anyona and I went out there talking to them about starting the movement. Some of them declined, some of them shied away, but Jaramogi Odinga and Achieng' Oneko and Bildad Kagia and Luko Bok supported us very seriously. And so Simeon Nyachai agreed that it was time to do something. He supported us. He contacted Kenneth Matiba to hear us. And we talked to Kenneth Matiba, and he agreed to join the movement. And therefore, between December and March, December of 1989 and March of 1990, a lot went on, because SABA SABA was declared or announced in April of 1990, right? And so between October and March, what happened was to mobilize some leaders, including religious leaders. In fact, Timothy Njoya and Bishop Okulu became very central to our movement. Although they did not declare that they were members, but they were very central. They are the ones that announced on the 31st of December 1989, 1st of January 1990, that the wind of change must be allowed to change this nation and blow from the north to the south. And so Africa must be able to change, right? Why were they saying that? Because in September of the previous year, 1990, 89, the war, the Berlin Wall, had fallen, and so much had happened, you know, forcing people to resign, forcing countries to go democratic, and the two were saying, you cannot continue oppressing and arresting people. We must allow democracy to thrive in our country.
You remember in 1988, there had been an election. And during that election, and I guess that was the Mlolongo election, there were very many politicians who, of course, were thrown out or who were shortchanged. And they were not able to get their positions at all. So the number of people who were frustrated, the number of people who felt that something was wrong was actually swelling. And I think this is why you drag in, you know, the names of the Matibas and the Rubias and the rest.
Democratic freedom, as laid down in our constitution.
The KANU government's attempt to stop the planned SABA SABA only served to spur the determination of the organizers and Kenyans tired of the authoritarian Moi rule. Days to the D-Day, the faces of the movement, as they had come to be known, Kenneth Matiba, Charles Rubia, and Raila Odinga, were arrested.
I went there and read the statement. He's saying if Moi does not release those three fellows, he's declaring war on the Kenyans, and we are prepared to fight. I was very bitter. We were very bitter. And I remember being asked, are you not afraid of being arrested and detained? I said, what can Moi do? There are two things he can do. Arrest me, take me back to detention, or kill me. But by killing me, he will not stop the revolution. Kenyans are tired. And from there, I knew if I am ready for the knee. I was prepared for anything.
The day before SABA SABA, Nairobi began swarming with people from all walks of life, eager to participate in the clamor for change.
One thing people must know, SABA SABA was not meant to be demonstrations. SABA SABA was meant to be a meeting to discuss the party's program, how we were going to be unveiling ourselves to the people, and why we thought that Moi at that stage should agree that democratic elections take place by removing Section 2A, you know, which he resisted quite much.
Kuna mambo kadha. Hamjui kwamba ndani yenu wenyewe kuna vote.
The government outlawed that rally and security was heavily deployed to the historic Kamukunji grounds. But the determined organizers had their way of bringing people here under the very eye of the security.
We had organized a young boys team, you know, the 11th side. And that 11th side, walikuwa wanacheza mipira hii ya makaratasi. Si ile mipira ile, the football, makaratasi. You know, and that one started attracting the people, and the boys were very good. They came.
To follow the government, we had organized a football tournament, pretending that these are people playing football. And we were playing there up to 10, up to 12. They said, no, let us have a meeting. You don't have to wait for the other guys. We are here. And nobody could penetrate that place.
What had begun as a peaceful assembly quickly descended into a brutal crackdown. Tear gas filled the air, truncheons swung, and live bullets were fired. The streets of Nairobi and soon other towns became battlegrounds. The human cost was immense.
When we started addressing the meeting, wow, we saw the full force of the government.
That particular day, I think, they killed just about 13 of our young people and arrested quite many, about 330. And for us, we continued.
35 years later, and that spirit of the first SABA SABA remains. A different generation is now driving the agenda, and the veterans of that day say the similarities are striking and the lessons learned remain relevant despite the generation gap.
People were asking us, did you want to overthrow the government? The intention of our movement was not about overthrowing. We were always campaigning for a democratic society. We still do, you know. We still think that our leaders are able to look at our society as competent to run its affairs if they were given enough freedom.
I say the SABA SABA still has a lot of significance and relevance because this was part of the democratization of this country. And with that, there have been stages of democratizing and including having a new constitution, which has been hailed as one of the most progressive constitutions in the world.
And that democratic space is what is manifesting 3 decades later. A new generation has stepped forward, carrying the same spirit of courage that shaped the country's democratic journey. While the context has evolved, the aspirations remain clear. A call for greater accountability, economic opportunity, social justice, and a society where fairness, dignity, and shared prosperity are not just ideal, but everyday reality. That symbolic day remains a vital part of Kenya's civic calendar. It continues to be a day of reflection, activism, and protest.
We are happy to see them, pick up the mantle from us. Of course, we are still there at the background, trying to, advise some of them because they are our brothers and sisters. Some of them are young enough to be our children. And we are still shepherding them to tell them so that they can also benefit from the intergenerational learning that is critical, even as they wage their war. Because theirs is completely different from ours.
The SABA SABA of 1990 was a turning point, a powerful reminder of what a united people can achieve. It opened the door to the democratic freedoms Kenya and her citizens enjoy today and inspired a new generation to remain engaged, to safeguard those hard-won rights and to play an active role in building a more just, inclusive and prosperous Kenya. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.